Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our sister who gave us this translation. The translation reads like this. Hello, Brother Nanshi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as anonymous? I tried to have my own mom killed in a ritual, and this happened like a very long time ago. At that time, I was working for this other department and I was working there as an accountant, but there were things that were happening that side that I did not like because there were some of my seniors that wanted me to get fired so that they can have their own relatives hired. I am someone who is a respected accountant, but most of the people, they do not even know that there are things that I did in order for me to secure this job. What bothers me a lot and what worries me is whenever I pray, I can actually hear the devil telling me that God will never forgive me. Even though when I confessed this in private, in secrecy to this other pastor, the pastor told me and he assured me that since I had confessed, indeed God was willing to forgive me. But in my heart, I feel as if God will never be able to forgive me for the sins that I committed. That is why I have come here, for I want your listeners. I know that they are good Christians here. Maybe they have more knowledge than I have. Will God forgive me for the sins that I have committed? Or I still need to go before the Lord again to ask for forgiveness, to receive Jesus Christ again in my heart. So I was someone who had my mom who was very controlling, like too controlling, but it was really good because if she was not that controlling, I was going to end up maybe joining a street gang and not making anything out of my life. But because of her controlling behavior, I was able to go to university. But then things started to get really bad after I had gotten married. My mom still had her strong opinions about how I was supposed to live my life, what decisions I was supposed to make, even whom I was supposed to marry. Over time, I started to resent my mom because I married a woman outside of my own tribe. And she said that if you marry outside of your own tribe, it is not nice. One must only marry a woman from their own tribe, not to take from another tribe. So this did not sit well with me because I was in love with my beautiful wife. And in 2007, during a business trip, when I went to Durban, and it was in the same year at work, I was really having a very bad year at work. And it was all because of one of the senior managers who really wanted to get me fired. And I knew that the reason as to why they wanted me to get fired because he had his own cousin who was supposed to come and work at the same department where I was working. So whilst we were at that business trip in Durban, that was when I met by mistake a man who was from Malawi. This man, whilst I was busy shopping, and then he introduced himself to me and he told me that he had a prophecy that he wanted to give me. I said, it is fine, you can give me that prophecy. Since I was in that desperate situation, I just wanted an answer from God, from my own ancestors. The man introduced himself as a sangoma, and he said that he was not just an ordinary healer. He claimed that he had very special powers that he had brought with him from Malawi, and he said that for me to see that indeed he was a powerful Malawian traditional healer, he was going to give me a true prophecy. Whilst we were inside that shop, he then told me everything that had been happening in my life, and he told me that my mom was the one who was inviting all of this negativity in my life because she was controlling me, for I had my own destiny, but yet she was controlling me. And from there on, I kept on speaking with this man throughout the year until in December 2007, he asked me if I was free, if he could come to my home. I said, indeed, you can come. In the meantime, I then spoke with my wife and I asked her to go and visit her mom in the province where she grew up in. I gave her some money, even allowed her to drive one of my beloved cars. She went to visit her mom in the province where her mom was staying, and I wanted her to give me some space so that this traditional healer can come and stay at my house, and I did not want my wife to know since she was a Christian. Then when this healer came, he then gave me a bottle. This bottle, it was full of liquid that I did not know what type of a liquid it was, for he did not explain anything. He told me that in order for me to have success in life and to eliminate the supervisor who was giving me a lot of problems at work, what was needed was any item that belonged to my mom. My mom at that time, she was really sick. I went to the family house where she was, and then I stole some of her old clothes and I returned with it back to my place, and I then gave it to that healer from Malawi. This man then asked for a scissors. I gave it to him. Then he started cutting that old t-shirt that once belonged to my mom, and he then burnt the rest of the pieces that he had cut up, and he just took a small piece and he pushed it inside that bottle. Later on, he told me that we were supposed to drive and we were supposed to find a place where we could finish up the ritual. I asked him what type of a place. He said, if we can find a forest in the bushes where no one is going to see us, it will be okay. I then told him that we could drive, and we drove and we went to this other bushy area. Then we started with the rituals. When we started these rituals, it was somewhere around 7 p.m. and he said that by 9 we were supposed to be complete with these rituals. Whilst we were sitting there, that was when I started to feel like really hot. He also complained and he said that it was hot, but it was not that hot on that night. Then we saw a small fire. It was as if the forest was burning. Then that small fire kept on getting bigger and bigger until the whole forest was burning. But this was like a vision, because the moment that we ran back to the car, that was when we saw that the forest was not on fire. The man then told me that this was a sign that God had not allowed us to sacrifice to take away the life of my mom. He just gave me some charms, and he said to me, God wants you to pray. God does not want you to do this spiritual traditional stuff. This is a sign from God. Over the next few months, I started to go to church with my wife. She was glad because all our lives that we had been married together, she had been saying that she wanted me to go to church with her. When I said, please take me to church, she was so happy. I then gave my life to Christ, but still I started to have dreams. In my dreams, I kept on seeing my mom. I returned back to that traditional healer in Durban. He then gave me a doll. It was a small voodoo doll, and he gave me a needle, and he then told me to stab that voodoo doll. What I did not know was that this traditional healer, even God was tormenting him because of what we had tried to do with my mom. So he wanted to use me so that I can kill my own mother. After that, that was when my mom started to get so sick. Then in 2008, I got so mad. It all started when I heard voices when I was sitting in my office, and I just felt like something was wrong. The first thing that came to my mind was like, I am about to lose my mind. I then grabbed my car keys and I drove back home. The moment that I parked the car, I then started screaming and screaming. My wife was the one who told me after I had recovered that you started screaming and screaming, and that was when we saw that you were mad. Our gardener was the one who helped my wife to get me back indoors, and then they tied me up. Later on, I was taken to the hospital. In 2010, that was when I truly gave my life to Christ. But the problem is that Since that time until right now, I do not feel okay at all. I feel as if God has not yet fully forgiven me. What am I supposed to do? I know that what I did was wrong. I tried to do these rituals so that I can have my supervisor at work killed by this Sangoma from Malawi. And what surprised me was that this traditional healer from Malawi, at the place where he was staying in Durban, he was assisting this other family, and he told me that the family, they had more than 25 theologies that he was busy fighting against and destroying, but he just felt to have my mom killed as well as to have my supervisor killed at the same time. My mom died after the man had given me that voodoo doll without telling me that the ritual that I was doing that time when I went again to Durban, it was a ritual of me killing my mom because God had been tormenting him. So he just wanted me out of his life. Can God forgive me for the things that I did? Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our admins who helped us with this translation. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world.